to dive back in. Just before the break, we talked about Albert Moravian and how what happens visually is critical to how we are perceived. We are going to spend the rest of this morning talking about the visual and the vocal. We'll break these down delivery skill by delivery skill and have you practice certain tips and how-tos, and then we'll be able to watch it on tape and see how it comes across. Posture is a confidence skill. The way you stand can create a perception of who you're interacting with. Think of all the different postures people use. I just was happy to demo a few. And think about the perceptions that they create. Be open to start thinking about what you naturally do. And we'll talk a little bit about, in just a moment, about the perceptions that are being created you may or may not be aware of. Now, there is no right or wrong way to stand. We just want you to know. We just want you to know that how that posture and that stance may be coming across. You may find it comes across completely confident. You also may find that it's coming across in a way that you didn't realize. Try on, for size, the new posture, we're going to call it home base. We want you to be open to trying it on for size, best in casual situations where you can practice it and no one knows what you're doing. Chances are, these are the things where people will start coming back to you and saying things like, you come across more polished, or you seem really assertive. Wow, you were really confident in your delivery today. They won't know why, but they'll know that something's changing. Posture is one of those things. Everyone jump up on their feet for me and go to where you would naturally go. No judgment, just go to where you would naturally go having a conversation with somebody. All right, can we get personal? Can we go for it? Let's talk about Pierre. First impression, what kind of impression is Pierre creating by his posture?
Comes across as, could be interpreted as confrontation. You got your hand on your head. So I'm about to make a point. Listen up.
Okay,
Kind of
so
a message.
possibly assertive, possibly confrontational. Has anyone given you the feedback that that could come across confrontational?
Nope.
There you go. All right, Lisa.
Withdraw.
Oh,
Yeah.
withdrawn. All right, let's go here. The one where Lisa went is a really common one. Male and female.
And I wasn't gonna do it, I was trying to go.
Oh, you were
Yeah.
playing along.
I'm thinking last night as I was
That.
standing around talking to people how to they.
That's-
It's
they were
really
social.
common.
Yeah,
It's
that's one
really
of the
common.
challenges, right? When you're like this,
3 years for me to do this.
It took 3 years.
I always used to stand like this. It took 3 years to come to this.
Srini, did you receive some feedback that prompted you to change that behavior?
Yeah. My LCSP told me that people will perceive if you are like this, you're
Yes.
not willing to listen.
Oh.
Actually, I listen very well.
Right,
I'm like,
it's just a
okay.
perception.
Let
And
me
really,
change that.
their perception is reality. Whatever is being perceived is their own personal reality. So we have to be aware of how we can neutralize that to make sure our listener feels open. This crossed arms typically is perceived as a barrier. We create barriers all day long between ourselves and listeners. It's our comfort zone. Oftentimes, the barrier are our own arms. We also might find, may I borrow your bag? Here's
Well, that's
another.
not mine, but-
Oh, this isn't yours. I bet you won't mind. Here's another really common one. Yeah. Right? Got all our stuff. Our stuff makes us feel safe, right? If I'm interacting with you, Sean, and I've got all my stuff that I continue to hang on to and create, what are you paying attention to?
Your stuff, and I feel like you need to go on and do something with it, quick, you know.
Ah, so the stuff creates a barrier and a distraction. It also makes Sean perceive that I'd rather be elsewhere. Yikes. Do you want your listener, especially if you have a 2-minute, really high-stakes hallway conversation, do we want to risk communicating to that person, I'm really in a hurry, I don't want to have this interaction right now? Be aware of the barriers that you create with people and make it a point to eliminate them. Find ways to get rid of the barriers. Another one that we often create is seated at a table. When you sit down to interact with someone, where do you sit? One-on-one. Think one-on-one. Where do you sit?
Across the table.
Across the table, because that makes us very safe. We've got this barrier, we have our stuff. It closes off our listener. Find a way, experiment with bridging that gap. Who mentioned earlier creating a bond? Is that KK?
KK.
Yeah, KK mentioned creating a bond. Don't you have to make personal connections all day long to build trust and believability? Trust with your clients?
Few of them.
A few of them. Some will leave over in the corner, right? Find a way to get rid of that barrier. It may be as simple as something like this. I have some really key information that I want to share with you on this sheet today. Would you mind if if you barely need to finish the sentence, they will almost always say, of course. And now here you are on the same side of the table, barrier's gone, or on a corner, each of you on a corner. The barrier's gone, the communication pattern is now open, completely open. Who, typically men, pockets, I have no pockets. All right, Pierre, thank you for playing along. What perception does that create?
Casual.
Casual.
Right. I mean,
Which
not-
can be a good thing.
Can be a good thing, maybe, it's kind of like not, could be perceived at least by our clients, that you're not paying enough attention to us, right? Because you've got your hands in your pocket.
Right.
Bored.
So boredom.
Boredom,
It's a good-
lackadaisical. Mhm. Very much so. Here's the other thing with pockets. Chances are, especially men, there's either some change or some keys. And then the longer they stay there, the more you're going to start what? Fidgeting. Now, pockets aren't necessarily off limits. I, in fact, agree with you in that it can be very casual and open, which can relax people. Just don't start there. Start with them out, and then if you're going to go pockets, one at a time. One pocket here, and then you may inevitably feel the fidget coming, switch pockets. Be aware, where you would then switch pockets. Why do you suppose I suggest just one at a time?
The other hand.
Might there be, thank you. Gesturing, which we're going to get into in a moment, is limited if you track both of your hands in pockets. And gestures are critical to have an impact on your message. Pockets are okay, just don't start there. And one at a time to keep your hands up free for gestures. All right, let's go here. Perception.
Distracted, nervous.
Nervous. Nerves. Now, the female version tends to be here. Women tend to go here, men tend to go here.
Okay.
And here or here, what then starts to happen? Start playing with my rings. Men tend to do this flip right here. Instead of where they would typically gesture, they just get a hand flip. Complete distraction. Now, let's go here. Women, we're here. This seems natural to us. Sometimes, usually it comes with a lean. Srini said this communicates nervousness. What if you're not? What if you're not nervous? It's creating a false impression. You're telling people that you're nervous when you're really, really not. And whatever they believe to be true is true. Right? Distraction for men. Now what if we go hands behind the back? Here's another really common one. Same thing happens. It'll only be here so long until you start to fidget. And then people get really curious because they see this movement, but they don't know what's back there. And can create this awkward moment. What is going on behind your back? It's so important.
I think he's in the rock too.
Yes. It's really, let's talk about the lower body. How common is it to lean? Everyone leans. It's a really, really common thing. We tend to come here and automatically then settle into our groove. Here's the thing with leaning. Two things. Sean hit right on it. Is side to side, it becomes this sway, which really is just a lower body fidget. It's another version of the fidget. The other thing with leaning, even more critical, is what happens every time I settle into a lean. Watch. I'm tall, and I just took 2 inches away from myself. It diminishes your height. Height is a gift. Every inch you can get in front of that room helps you to own the front of that room. Leaning diminishes that height. It takes away from your ability to project, from your ability to really look assertive and own the front of that room. Keep the height there by avoiding the lean. So what do? We call it home base. Step with me. Feet hip width apart. Toes are pointed forward. There's another common one. Like to do the toes out to the side. To shift those toes inward. Shoulders back but relaxed, and hands relaxed at your side. Now just hang here for a second. We know you've already practiced it, shouldn't you? It took you 3 years.
Still not there.
How does this feel? Lisa?
Uncomfortable.
Feels uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Does it look awkward or uncomfortable?
Nope.
No, it's neutral, it's open.
It's neutral and open. There's the idea. We want to eliminate as many barriers or distractions as possible by keeping your posture neutral. The smallest change can feel so uncomfortable. But here's the good news. You get to leave. We would never ask you to just stand here and never move. There's movement that comes into play. There are gestures that come into play. Now what about seated? How do we go neutral seated? Everyone have a seat. Same exact, look exactly, here we go. Perfect example. This is where we typically go. Cross legs, hands crossed in the lap, relaxed back in the chair. I will not take away the relaxed back in the chair. It's good to be relaxed and appear that you're comfortable in the situation. Let's open up. Come a little bit closer to the table. Both of your feet planted on the floor and hands just relaxed at the top of the table, open. This is seated home base. Now you can lean back in your chair. This chair's a little too high for you. You can lean back as long as you stay open. One hand on the arm of the chair, just fine. Just stay open. Welcome that interaction and to look confident in the interaction. You may find throughout there may be times to lean forward. I find coming forward is easier to gesture because both of my hands are accessible to me now. Or if I want to gesture with one hand, two hands, the other hand, or none at all, they're both right here ready for me to use. How does it feel seated?
So I struggle with the height of the chair because I'm shorter.
Yes.
So like you look very tall because you're so high up, but I don't have my feet on the ground. So is it more important for your feet on the ground?
Yes, it's definitely more important to plant your feet regardless of your head.
Okay.
And what you just, once you get there, it's what you do with that position. Just work to maintain it. Not necessarily about creating height up through the chair and then you leave your feet wondering what to do because your toes are reaching for the floor. Get the feet planted, create your height through your posture. Now, how many of you, we've got home base now. The good news is we get to move. How many of you stand when you deliver a message? On a pretty regular basis.
Half and half.
About half and half. All right, so it seems to be split right down the middle. When you stand, movement is a great skill to use to engage your listener. Now there is purposeful movement and then there's movement without purpose. Use purposeful movement to connect with your listener and draw them into the message. Here are movements that really serve no purpose. As I communicate with you, sometimes I might step back and forth, this way, side to side, no purpose. Give your movement purpose. I look first, I connect with Sean, and then I move as I'm speaking. I plant and stay planted until I get to the period at the end of that sentence. Connecting with KK, stand here for a little while. I'm feeling that need to lean. I want to lean to the side. Instead of leaning and diminishing your height, turn it into purposeful movement. I connect with KK. I move all the way to the other side of the room, staying connected with him until I finish that sentence or thought. We call it arc and park. Have you noticed each time I step, I put a curve into my step until I get to the side? I actually imagine a wheel right here. And in my mind, I need to make my way around that circular shape. Here's why. If I'm standing here and I've got a listener on the side of the room and I move toward them directly, it'll be another barrier. That quick forward movement can be intimidating, over assertive, if you will. The arc and park takes some of that intimidating factor out. It softens the approach. Step with the inside leg and move your way around the wheel, staying connected with whomever you made that connection with. The key here is to stay open through the shoulders. Another reason of why we put the arc in the step. So if I move directly toward a listener right here, my shoulder has now closed off this entire side of the table. KK, Pierre, and I have zero connection right now. What does that free them up to do? Multitask, whatever they want. Constantly communicate to your listeners that you're open to all the time, purely by the positioning through your movement. Another key with movement is variety. If I constantly connect it here, walk this way, stay connected, plant here for a little while, connect here, walk this way. See the repetitive element here? It starts to look rehearsed. Add variety wherever you can. I may connect with Rich and just take a couple steps and land right here in the middle of the room. Stay here for a few sentences, and then I may go back this other way. Sean and I are connected, I stay connected with her, just a couple of steps will do it. The variety is what will keep it conversational and natural. Thoughts on movement
What's,
and posture?
all that makes sense. What is, at least, the whole thing about leaning back and, what impression does that leave?
In seated, are you talking
No,
seated?
standing, like just putting your leg, your feet back or not being
Like this?
purposeful. Yeah, what does that indicate? Why is that bad?
Throw a question at me. Throw me a question about our course. We'll do this a little bit, we'll do this deeper later, but I want to answer your question through a demo. Throw me a question about our course, anything.
What's the best way to communicate?
Well, there are a lot of best ways to communicate. That we're going to go through some skills all throughout the morning that will be best practices. There are 8 main ones. But what perception came across with it as I started interacting with you, but stepping backwards? Even just the one step backwards, what could come across?
Not confident.
Completely uncomfortable, not sure how to answer, confidence down. When you can stay planted and home base through that interactive process, confidence comes across to your listener.
What if you're behind a pedestal or something, right? Usually, what do you do there?
Anytime you can leave a podium or a lectern, leave it. That is another example of one of those barriers we were talking about, another version of this barrier. Lecterns and podiums just create that division between you and your listener. If you can get away from it, get away from it. That creates the opportunity for movement. That allows Rich and I to connect through a whole entire sentence as I walk toward him. Let's recap those two.
One time, I think I missed the sitting posture that you were discussing.
I think you were in
Yeah.
coaching during the seating.
So maybe it's just a quick do's and don'ts for help. Like
Yes.
when you're dressing a group and while you're sitting,
Mhm.
like pulling your legs.
Yes.
What's,
Were you
I do
here
that a
for,
lot.
were you here for this, any part of the posture of the standing, what we call home base, and we practiced it standing up?
No, he was not.
You were not. All right, home base in general, quick recap. Let's recap it. I just happen to have it right here ready for you. Balance your weight evenly on your feet. Feet under the hips, shoulders back, hands relaxed at your side. Home base. You leave here to move, or you leave here to gesture, but always come back to home base. Same thing seated, feet planted on the floor, shoulders up but relaxed. And here you can lean back in your chair as long as you stay open with your hands. Relax, whether you're relaxing them on the arms of your chair or on the table, doesn't matter, as long as they're open and accessible for the interaction. That will eliminate the folded hands in the lap, fidget, hand in the pocket, fidget, phone under the table, hoping nobody notices, all those things that we do, right?
Yeah, we saw that, and I caught that.
Let's review the arc. Arc is when you're moving, put an arc pattern into your steps so that you're not coming directly at someone. It eliminates the possibility of intimidation and creates a softer approach. I'll show you with Sean. I'm connecting with Sean and I put an arc in the pattern before I come across to this side, finishing my sentence or thought with where I park. It's just putting an arc pattern. The key here with that arc and park is to step with the inside leg. Watch what happens and how awkward it looks if I step with the outside leg. I connect with KK and I decide to move to this side of the room. See what happens? Also look in the direction you're moving. Even more awkward, I connect with Srini and walk in the direction. Right? Completely awkward. We step with the inside leg and look in the direction that you're moving.
I think it also helps with the breathing in your voice by moving,
Yes.
like the nervousness if you're nervous.
You're exactly right. We're going to talk about the breathing element of all of this in just a little while. Movement is a great tool to burn off nervous energy. There's nothing that builds it more than to just stay planted in one spot and feel all of that energy building inside of your body. You feel it creep. Sometimes your body temperature comes up, sometimes you feel it here. A lot of people feel it in their cheeks. I do. That's where I get it when I get nervous. You'll see my cheeks turn bright red. It really helps you manage it just by adding an element of movement. It helps you burn and expel some of that energy off. Gestures. The first thing that Lisa said when we went to home base is this feels awkward. The good news is it's good to gesture. Gestures, any effective message. Shall I be alarmed? No. Any effective message has a visual aid of some sort. Keep in mind that sometimes that visual aid is you. You may not have a PowerPoint slide that supports exactly what you're saying. You may not have a handout. You may not have a gadget or a product to share with someone, anything. But you do have these. Use them with purpose. Gestures will create visuals around what you're saying. It will help your message be more memorable and more impactful. Here are the how-tos with gestures. When you gesture, create space between your elbow and your ribs. Here's where a lot of us land. We'll start here. We try to cure that in home base. A lot of times we go back here anyway because it feels safe. And then here's what happens with our gestures. We have three versions. We have the left hand with the elbow locked, the right hand with the elbow locked, or both hands, and back into the middle. We call it T-Rex. We look like a little dinosaur. When you create that space between your elbow and your side, the options for your gestures just got unlimited. You can gesture really big or none at all. Two hands and back home. A small conversational gesture and back to home base. The key is to give them a break. Now, if I just keep using the same gesture over and over, it tends to be just a version of all the same happening right in from the elbows. This is what I do. What essentially starts to happen now as I just continue to constantly gesture versions of the same, completely distracting. We want them to be used for impact. That's why we give them a break at our sides. Then when you want to use one, you're feeling particularly passionate, you want to show someone how you feel about a certain point, gesture away from your sides and back down. Now what happens to my voice when I gesture?
Variation.
Well,
Variation, a change in cadence. What else?
Inflection.
inflection. If inflection is your goal, Sean, gestures are your back door to that inflection. It is really difficult to do a really large gesture, see what happened? And not inflect. Now, facial expressions are how you communicate to your listener that you've got passion around this topic. Really mean it. Try a large gesture with no facial expression. Almost impossible. I find it's like the tummy in the head thing. You almost can't gesture big and not change your face or change your voice. So if inflection and passion coming through visually through your face are your goal, just make your gestures bigger. Just make sure to bring them back home so they don't do you a disservice by becoming a distraction. Give your listener a break in between.
What about seated though? Are you into that or?
Yeah, same thing. Let's try some. Let's have a conversation. Gestures work perfectly fine seated, as long as you keep your hands available. If we go here, chances are you won't do the work to bring your hand up to gesture and do the work to go put it back. It gets awkward. It becomes too much work. Keep your hands accessible and available. They'll naturally happen as you speak. It's really hard just to leave your hands here. But even if you've got a point that you really want to make, your hands are here ready, both hands can leave your sides for a really big gesture. Huge increase in margins in fiscal 13. Really big changes coming down the road. I have some amazing strategies. I really think you're going to be impressed. Easy to gesture at the table. The hands are even more available to us than they are standing sometimes. Gestures seated, absolutely. Now, here's where I call it the temperature dial, the thermostat. You have to, every one of these skills has a thermostat. You have to decide in any given situation if you go to a 2, a 5, or a 10, based on what you know about your listener, what their personality is like, their background, you've interacted with them before. Get a visual of your listener and decide how big of a gesture might work. If it's just one-on-one and you've bridged the barrier, a really, really large gestures over and over make it to be overwhelming. So constantly be aware of the situation and your listener. You can turn that thermostat up or down as needed on the fly. That awareness is a really big element there.
What about voice or vocal, right? Because when you're sitting,
Yes.
then at least my tendency is you're not vocal enough because you're sitting, it kind of takes away the punch. When you're standing, you can project more. So how
You're
do you-
so right. In the next 3 delivery skills, we cover exactly that. Will you stick that in your front pocket for me? We're going to cover that. You are so right. It's so much more,
I feel like I can't even.
excuse me, so much easier to project standing. The minute you go seated, it makes your job a little bit harder. And there are skills that you use to practice that. We'll get there. Let's practice these 3, should we? We've got posture, gestures, movement with the arc and park. Ready to try it on for size? This will be taping number 2. This one does not, you don't get a private coaching session on. I will interactively coach you from behind the camera. We'll play it, we'll tape them on a group card. You'll all be on the same card, and we'll watch the playback here in the room to see what happens when you gesture, when you move, to see how this neutral posture works. 1 minute, I'll jump in with my private coaching, and the topic will be an impromptu topic. Anything you want to talk about that has some action or some excitement behind it. If you can't think of something, I made some notes during your intros, I'll throw you a topic. Questions about the taping? All we're focusing on for this taping are gestures, posture, and movement. Good? All right, let's give it a try.
Use the same intro again? You want to compare?
let's go with a topic that has some action or passion around it. Either, Srini, I'd like to hear more about the gaming industry project you're on.
That's it.
Sri-
Oh, I'm sorry, you're Vic, Srini.
I'm like,
What did I
go
have for
ahead.
you? You talk all about it. All right, let's take you, Srini. Why don't you go first, and let's hear about that gaming industry project. You seem to have some passion around that.
No, I don't, but.
You don't? Okay, what else? What?
No, I can talk to it because it will be.
Because you're very familiar with it?
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Let me talk to you guys about the project that we did with Vivendi Games. When we first started with them, they were owned by Universal Studios.
And relax that hand down by your sides.
It was very interesting project. The first day when we walked into the building, we were all dressed up, suited up, everyone walked in. We were all invited by the CFO into the room. We were very excited that CFO wants to talk to us.
Were you
Yeah.
very excited? Show us that you were excited through a gesture. Okay, hands are at home base, and then show us.
We were very excited. The CFO wanted to talk to us.
Create space between your elbow and your side when you say very.
We were very excited. The CFO called us into the room. We walk into the room. The first thing, he shuts his door and says, "Please don't spoil my environment. Dress down. I don't want to see you guys in this attire anymore."
And reach
That's
your
my
hands
first-
to your side in between the gesture. Always give them a break. Give me one sentence practicing arc and park toward Rich. Connect with Rich and add movement.
That was my first impression of the client. Then we start the project with them. Our audit team proposes on the project. We were asked to leave.
All right, you are off the hook, Srini. What
It was so difficult, it was not just me.
Rich, tell me about what happened when he connected and moved toward you.
I felt, it's a little awkward to say this, but I felt the responsibility to listen in a more engaged way when you, with your eyes, focus your attention on me.
There you go. How priceless is that feedback? I felt the need to listen and engage more because he was focused on me. What if a key client said that? I really wanted to listen and engage more. Phenomenal
Okay.
feedback. Vic, you are up next.
Thinking of a topic now.
How about your 13th anniversary?
It was uneventful.
Oh, is that
Talk
All
about-
right, you children, right?
No children.
No children.
So let me talk about,
What do you like to do in your spare time? Which is one of your hobbies?
sure.
Starting at home base? Nice.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Vic Bonso. Today I'm going to talk to you about one of my passions. Actually, I have a number of hobbies, but one of my passions is watching movies. Quite a common.
All right, Vic. Relax those hands in between the gesture. Be purposeful with the gesture and then put it away.
Quite a common hobby or passion, as I'm sure most of you will agree. One of the things that I've done is actually collected a number of movies throughout my life. So I'm an avid watcher. Anytime I put in a CD, watch the latest movies. I have a Netflix account. Watch quite a bit of movies that I can in my spare time. Naturally, that does not
Okay,
go
the
well.
hands come down in between the gesture. Give us one sentence about the best scene in a movie you've ever seen. I want to really push you to get that elbow up away from your sides to create some inflection and some facial expressions.
One of the best movies I've seen is, I would say, the trilogy Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises. I'm sure most of you might have seen it as well. I think it's probably one of the best trilogies out there ever made. I was a huge fan.
Is it really one of the best trilogies ever made, or is it one of the best trilogies ever made? Show us that it's the best.
It was one of the best trilogies I think ever made. I'm sure most of you will agree to it as well. And that has led me to become an avid follower of Christopher Nolan.
And you went back to home base. Nicely done. Thank you for that. Let's take Rick. Is Rick here?
I'm right here.
Oh, hi,
What are we
Rick.
doing? I'm sorry.
Have you missed a lot
I
of,
missed the last half hour, yeah.
all right, watch what's going on here.
Okay.
We are working on gesturing away from the body, coming back to hands relaxed at the side in between, and adding some movement. Chest, posture, gestures, movement. Just watch the others, you'll catch up.
Okay.
All right?
So sit down and don't do it.
So sit down. That's right. All right, Richard.
So.
Richard, let's hear about having boys in basketball.
I thought about my topic and now you're switching.
Oh,
it
no,
up.
you can.
No, that's
You-
fine.
no, you've got a
Boys
topic,
in
you go for it. What was
basketball.
your topic?
We can talk passion. I didn't talk about purpose earlier. And so what I was hoping to do is talk to you guys a little bit about why I wanted to take this course for these 2 days. And shortly, hopefully in another week or so, I'll be announced as the audit leader for the travel, hospitality, and leisure subsector.
So far, just one gesture, one hand at the side. Starting home,
Mhm.
and then out away from your sides with the gesture.
So hopefully that's going to come out pretty soon. And what I'm looking for is to really make a difference in the eminence that our firm has in that particular subsector. I would like to see us out in the marketplace, meeting more clients that we haven't met
Can you
with before.
show me out in the marketplace in
I'd
a
like to see
gesture
us
that leaves the side?
out in the marketplace more, empowering our people, our senior managers, our other partners in our subsector to go out and go out and meet people, go out and build eminence, go out and make sure that we're perceived in the marketplace as the leader in the travel hospitality industry. And so that is one of the main reasons why.
Jumping in,
Yeah.
2 sentences, give your gestures a bit longer of a break in between. You're using them, now you're starting to push them away from your body, just have a lot of them. So give a break longer before you gesture again with purpose, 2 sentences.
So I haven't figured out exactly how I'm gonna do that yet, but I do have some phenomenal folks that I will use as a resource to try to build off of the excellence and the progress we've made so far.
Show us, build off of. There's a great opportunity for a gesture.
I'd like to build off of the progress we've made so far in the marketplace, build off the relationships that we've built, and then get out and continue those successes. Really, I'm hoping that collectively we'll see some big wins from these evidence building activities.
There you go. Thank you, Rich. What happened with his voice when he said big wins? He gestured big. What happened with his inflection when he said big? Big wins, right?
And sort of feedback from the morning, the first session was inflections, was not being monotone. So trying to do both things at the same time actually got to be a challenge. I got lost in it.
What you'll find, Richard, or Rich, I have a tendency to call you Rich. What
That's-
you'll
Rich
find
is
is
perfect.
gesturing big,
Right.
you'll naturally inflect. You won't even have to think about it because your voice, it's really hard to let your elbow leave your side without your voice changing.
Okay.
Back door into that inflection by gesturing big. You'll naturally bump up there and leave that safe tonal zone that we tend to stay in. Thank you for playing along and letting me push you. We have Pierre. You have a topic in mind, Pierre?
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
question I'm very often asked when I come. I used to be in Chicago before, 20 years ago, and I moved to New York. The question I very often receive is, do you prefer New York compared to Chicago? And I think I prefer New York. And the reason, and I've learned to be clear on that, and the reason I always give is the environment.
Hands back down to the side, in between the gesture.
Chicago is a great city, so is New York, but if you want to do something over the weekend in Chicago, it's very difficult to find something close by that's really interesting. If you are in New York, you can go west.
All right, Pierre, so far we have 2 gestures. We have New York and Chicago. Do something in New York or do something in Chicago. Rest in between and then show us something big that you love to do in New York that you can't
Okay.
do here.
So one thing I enjoy particularly in New York
Hands
is
at
to
your
go
sides?
upstate New York, because then there are the mountains, there is a forest, and it's something very different. That's, I mean, it's a big change compared to the week in the city. So it's a real break, something I enjoy a lot that I hardly find, often used to find in Chicago.
And then relax your hands at your
When I
side
was living
after
there.
the gesture. One more sentence, move toward your listener.
Okay. Just don't get me wrong, I really love Chicago. I was just using a topic to practice my gestures, but I love those cities actually.
Thank you, Pierre. Feedback on what changed when he gestured bigger. What was different? What changed?
Tone, voice, and
Even facial expressions.
Voice changed, facial expression changed. The things that engage our listener and suggest there's passion around your topic can all be accessed through a gesture. All right, KK.
So I don't have a topic, if you want.
You do not have one? How about the perks of having a local client? How great it is to have your client local.
Okay. So, good morning, everyone. As you know, I've been with Deloitte for close to 10 years. And in consulting, they say it takes about 15 years or so to get your first local client. And mine came in 10 years, so I was a little earlier than the usual norm. My client is about 20 minutes from where I live, which is phenomenal. I can actually take a back road
Is that phenomenal?
for me.
Show me phenomenal. It is phenomenal. Now make me believe. Let me feel the perk of having a local client by saying that is phenomenal.
Yeah. So having a short commute is just phenomenal, right?
Even bigger.
It's just phenomenal. I can actually take the back road to my client and not even have to get on the freeway sometimes, which again,
Show me the back road. Away from your body.
I can take the back road and not even get on the freeway, which is again a good sort of makes for a good commute, if you will. But most importantly, right around the time when I got this local project was when my younger son was born, and he is now 2 years and about 8
Make
months.
sure to relax the hands at the side until you're ready to gesture again.
He's 2 years and 8 months old, and I have been home pretty much the entire time in the last 2 years and 8 months or so. I've had the occasional travel like this time here, but not as much as I used to before. And I don't know if it's a
All
good
right,
thing.
jumping in with KK, he's getting the gestures, relaxing in between. We saw what happens with the babe. Now I want you to start over here, lock eyes with Pierre and give him one sentence moving toward him with a faster pace.
Okay. Now, I don't know if it's good or bad that my son has been around me every day for the last 2 years and 8 months, but we'll find out.
Every day.
Every day, but we'll find out.
Thank you, KK. Differences. What progressed through that process?
Tone, more animated.
More animated.
Yeah, lively.
Livelier.
Yeah, that'll be
Nice.
Change in facial expression.
More capturing.
Right. All because he's leaving the side of his body, adding some movement. And always be sure to bring those down, the gesture, the hands down in between the gesture. You'll see on the playback, when people start to take the break, prior to that, it'll look really busy, almost distracting. And when you start to give just that 1 or 2 seconds break at the side, how much more polished. I will, may I take a break? I was just letting him watch a couple because he had missed some of it.
What did he like?
I'll give you a topic, or a topic of your choice. They're done. Yeah, great,
It has to
thank
be
you.
okay.
How lively and animated your discussion on how you speak? I would like to think it's based on the audience you're presenting to.
You got it. You got it. This is that temperature gauge that I was talking about. Were you in the room when I talked about turning the temperature up or down? Any of these skills, especially things like animation, gestures, things that create passion, put them on a temperature dial, thinking first about who your listener is and how that interaction will go. There are certain listeners that will really appreciate a lot of animation and passion. There are other listeners that you have that you'll know you'll need to turn it down to maybe a 2 or 3. All of these skills have some adaptability based on who your listener is. It's always about them. Always about what works the best for them. Rick.
Can I tell a story about executive presence?
Please. I would love to hear
I don't know
your
if
story.
I don't know if hand gestures work into it or anything.
We'll have to work them in, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for gestures, home base. Did you talk about, were you here for home
No,
base?
I
Did
wasn't.
Mary Beth talk about home base in the coaching room?
She hasn't gotten there yet.
Oh, because you were, that's right, you were gone out on your call. Hands relaxed at your side, shoulders relaxed, unless you are gesturing or moving. In between those events, relax your hands at the side, at your sides.
Okay. So about 15 years ago, when I was with a different firm, I was in Pittsburgh and coordinating recruiting at Carnegie Mellon, and I used to do a lot of undergraduate.
All right, home base for you, Rick, is reclasping your hands in front of your
Back
body.
here,
You
okay.
can use those conversational gestures, just give them a break and drop them down to your side to give your listeners a break for a moment.
Okay. So I'm interviewing a young lady at Carnegie Mellon who was from mainland China. She had only been in the U.S. for a year or 2. And, the interview went
And the
fine.
hands go down to your side in between.
Okay. The interview went fine. At the end, I gave her some time to ask questions. She asked me, what are you looking for in a candidate? So I gave my stock answer, which was presence, intelligence, and adaptability. That driven intelligence. I always said presence,
Give me
intelligence.
one sentence with your hands in home base, meaning relaxed at your side. Give me one sentence.
So she says, what is presence? And I said, like executive presence. She said, I didn't bring you a present. And
All right, now there's an opportunity, Rick, for a really cool gesture. You had a really nice pause prior, you're setting us up for some humor, and she says, I didn't bring you a present. See how you can really use that gesture with purpose? Try that. Try that sentence,
Yeah.
more purposeful with the gesture.
So I said,
Starting off in home
Sorry.
base, relax your hands.
so I explained that we were looking for someone with executive presence, and she said, I didn't bring you a present.
Even bigger, I didn't bring you a present. Create space between your ribs and your elbows. Give me that sentence, I didn't bring you a present.
I didn't bring you a present.
And back to home. Hands down.
At which I got kind of flustered because I didn't want to imply that we needed presents from our campus, and I had to explain that that wasn't what I meant, and it was just sort of an awkward moment, but something I always think about when I hear the word executive presence.
All right, Rick, I'm going to really push you here. Stay with me.
Yep.
I want you to give me one sentence with no gesture at all. Now,
Okay.
this will feel really awkward to you because you're a constant gesturer.
Yeah.
You run the risk of distracting your listener because of the constant movement. I would, in the future, never push you to go a full sentence with no gesture. This is for the sake of practice, to get used to allowing your hands to be still. One sentence, no gesture, followed by a big gesture, and you're off the hook.
So that's what I think about when I hear the words executive presence.
All right, you're off the hook. Keeping your hands still, even for a few seconds, can feel awkward, and we would never want you to appear soldier-like with no movement. The idea where I was really pushing him here is to get used to leaving them a little bit longer before you gesture again, and then make those gestures have some impact to them. Conversational gestures, just fine. Just make sure to get used to giving them a break. You'll see it. You'll see the difference on tape. Thank you for letting me push you. And you have not been in with Mary Beth yet, right? Okay. Lisa, have you?
No, I haven't.
Ah. And Sean, you need to go yet too.
Yeah, are we supposed to pick a topic or what?
Yeah, you can pick one or I'll throw you one.
Oh.
You want to throw me one? I will throw you one, Lisa. Tell me about what it was like living in Minnesota.
I'll do that, Chicago, New York, and Paris. Well, I grew up in southern Minnesota. I'm one of 3 girls raised on a farm at Fort Ave, with one bathroom. And I was the first in my family to go to college. And having a son who just went through the whole college application, what a difference, right? I think I maybe applied 1 or 2 colleges possibly versus I went to college and started my career in Minneapolis. I was there for 6 years.
I like what I'm seeing with the gesture. They're very appropriate to the message. You're letting your hand leave your side.
They're flapping.
Now, nope, you're doing fine. You're going back to home in between. Now I want you to start on this side of the table. Choose someone to lock eyes with here and give a full sentence as you move toward them. And move with some pace. So start over. Look first, then move.